back to the Hartwell College tour with Senator Bernie Sanders at the University of Chicago's Institute of Politics. We were talking about Citizens United, and it's a big issue for you and for the country. I agree. The question is, how do we replace the Supreme Court justice seat left by Antonin Scalia? How do you get the Republican leadership led by Mitch McConnell, who one of your colleagues, even to give a hearing? The president doesn't seem to be able to move these people.
Well, Chris, what we have, and I'm in the Senate and have been there throughout Obama's tenure, we have a level of obstructionism which I believe is unprecedented in the history of the United States. And what happened, as you know, literally on the day that Obama was sworn in as president, these guys got together and they said, all right, how do we make sure that Obama is as ineffective as possible? How do we stall? I'm there and I've seen them. We can't get an assistant, sanitation worker approved by the Senate without going through all kinds of processes. So this is just a continuation of that. And you ask me the question, what do we do about it? First of all, let me be very clear. I will do everything that I can to see that the president does make a nomination and that the United States Senate holds the hearings to either approve or disapprove. That's what the Constitution mandates. There's no debate about that, is there?
Nope.
And the idea,
Article 2 says name a nominee.
That's right.
It's his job, the president.
It is as clear as the nose on our faces. And yet these people are such obstructionists, they don't even want to give this president the right to fulfill his constitutional duty. So I will do everything that I can to make it happen. But you raise a broader question. You ask, well, what do you do about it? And I'll tell you, this is what the campaign is about. I know it's outside of mainstream thinking. Are you ready for this one, Chris?
Yes.
All right.
Oh, I think I can take it.
All right, take it. I don't want anyone collapsing on me here. It is to revitalize American democracy. On issue after issue, and it's not just Republican obstructionism on this issue, you have a Congress that does the bidding of the billionaire class, of the campaign donors. You know, you're there all the time. Half the members of Congress are spending their life raising money, right? And it's getting worse and worse and worse. So this is what you got to do. What you need to do is rally the American people. I'll give you an example. Raising the minimum wage. Overwhelming support for raising the minimum wage. Congress does not want to do it. Pay equity for women workers. Congress does not want to do it.
Obama can't do this, but you can. How?
I'll tell you. Well, what you need, and what I say is you need a political revolution. And that is you need these young people to understand, and working people and low-income people, if they are not involved actively in the political process, it will be the billionaire class who makes decisions for them and not necessarily in their interest.
But you get elected. Let's say you get elected. You take office next January 20th, and you walk up to the Senate and you meet with the leadership and say, I have a program here. I want to have free, government-funded tuition for public universities. There are things I want done on Social Security to increase benefits. There's things I want done on health care, so it can become like Medicare for life. You've got very strong positions. Right. And Mitch McConnell looks at you the way he looked at President Obama and says, forget about it.
And then you know what I say? I say, hey, Mitch, take a look out the window. There are 1 million young people out there who don't want to be in debt for half their life for the crime of going to college. And if you want to antagonize those 1 million people and lose your job, Mitch, if you don't want to lose your job, you better start listening to what we have to say. That's the point. That's how change takes place.
Well, how do you squeeze a guy like him?
It's not him. Mitch is, I know
all
Mitch
the Republicans.
McConnell.
How do you squeeze them? 60 senators. You need 60 senators to get a court. You need 60.
Let me tell you this. Absolutely, positively, 100%. If we rally young people in this country to say, you know what, Germany, Scandinavia, other countries, they have free tuition in public colleges and universities. I have been all over this country because I've talked to kids $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 in debt, paying a huge percentage of their income, okay? Young people stand up and say, we are sick and tired of it. We don't want to go in debt for our whole lives because we got a college education. You know what? We'll win that fight immediately. But the trick is not to appeal to Mitch McConnell. It's to say, Mitch, take a look at your emails coming into your
What
office.
evidence do you have that this has worked for you? Have you increased the turnout in these elections?
We've done, look,
have you, as a senator, been able to get 60 votes of senators for anything? Have you ever been able to do this? What you're talking about doing? You say I can get 60 senators.
I am not the president of the.
Okay.
What I am saying, Chris.
But what evidence do you have you can do it?
What evidence do I have?
You can do
the evidence that I have is that's the only way change has ever happened
I agree with you.
in this country.
That's
what the civil rights movement was about. That's what the women's movement, the gay movement.
It's necessary, but is it sufficient?
That's called,
Is it sufficient to get it done? These guys run in their own states with their own conservative constituencies that will say, fine, Bernie Sanders is a liberal president.
Let me give you an example.
He's a progressive. I'm not one. I'll vote against him.
Let me give you an example.
How do you know you can do it?
How do I know? I don't know anything. I think we do the best that we can do. We try. But let me give you an example, all right? If you and I were sitting here 10 years ago, and I said to you, you know, Chris, I think in 2015, gay marriage will be legal in every state in this country, what would you have told me? You would have told me I'd be crazy, right? Honestly. That's what you would have told me. You thinking about it?
I can't see the future.
All right. All right.
But you're right. It moved very quickly.
It moved
quickly. The country moved very quickly.
It moved quickly because people in the gay community and their straight allies said, people in this country have a right to love whoever they want. And then do you see any Republican ads?
How does this relate to Citizens United?
Let me answer your question. Do you see any Republican? I see all the connection.
Okay.
You are asking me how we make change. And I'm telling you, you make change not by sitting down with Mitch McConnell. Yeah. You make change when millions of people in this country demand change. That's the way change has always taken place. Chris, it's not just, I use gay rights, which is a good example, contemporary example for these young people to understand. They take, oh, gay rights, what's the big deal? Trust me, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when I voted against DOMA in 1996, that was a very difficult vote. But what about the civil rights movement? What about the women's movement? It always happens when millions of people demand change. And right now, when we have massive levels of income and wealth inequality, when the top 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. You know what? We do need a political revolution. Can I offer an alternative?
It seems to me that the reason that we got gay marriage, same-sex marriage, is because when we went to Prop 8, we went to California, they couldn't find anybody. Ted Olson, those people, there was nobody on the other side. California didn't have a case. There was no damage done by gay marriage. And that's what happened. There were no losers. Now, what you're offering... they couldn't make a case against it. Now, what you're offering... Can I continue the thought?
With that. No, I don't agree with that.
Okay, go ahead.
They can't make a case. You have all of these fundamentalists.
But they didn't lose.
All of these people, millions.
They disagree, but they didn't lose.
Oh, I think they lost.
Okay, let me ask you about money. If we get free tuition, government-funded tuition here, it has to come from someone. Those people will be the one who lose. If you have larger Social Security benefits, the higher income people during their working lives will be the ones who lose. If you get into arithmetic here. So there will be tremendous forces against everything you've advocated here.
Right.
It's not like saying nobody's staying up all night worrying about gay marriage because they're...
Okay, good point.
But this thing, they're losing money. And the interests are at work here. The very interests you've talked about are still going to be there the day after you're inaugurated.
That's right.
So what do you do with it? Don't tell me you can just wish it to happen.
Let me rephrase it.
Okay.
What you are saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is you got a very powerful billionaire class who wants it all and will resist any change.
Anyone with substantial wealth or in a 401k or a mutual fund will want to hold on to their money. They'll all want to hold on to their money.
What you're talking about is the Koch brothers in corporate America.
And everyone in the stock market.
And people who are very, very wealthy. So let me just say
anyone in the stock market.
Chris, let me just say this. Not anyone. All right?
Well, this university invests in the market.
Let me just say this, all right, if I might. All right? In the last 30 years, you know what's happened? There's been a massive redistribution of wealth. You know that?
I agree completely.
It has gone from the middle class and working families to the top 1/10 of 1%. I didn't hear the establishment moaning about how radical and crazy it was that trillions of dollars left the pockets of the middle class. Now, when I'm talking about giving the middle class a break, all these guys are...
No, you're giving a normative argument. I agree with it. The question is, how do you get it done when all these powers are arrayed against you?
Then let me...
The Finance Committee is sitting around, how do we have to raise taxes on Wall Street?
Right,
so we do this 50-cent tax on $100. We have to get that tax passed. And then somewhere you have to dedicate it to paying for tuition bills. These are hard things to get done.
What you are saying, let's be clear, okay? Let me be very clear. I believe that in the year 2016, a college degree today is about the equivalent of a high school degree 50, 60 years ago.
I agree with it. Normatively, you're winning the argument.
All right. So I believe that when we talk about public education, it shouldn't be first grade through 12th. It should be through college. Okay? I believe that public colleges and universities, not the University of Chicago, sorry guys, but public colleges and universities should be tuition-free so that every kid in this country, look, I grew up in a family, did not have a lot of money. My parents never went to college. I want every kid in this country who has the ability to do so to go to college. Now, I also want to deal with an issue you guys are worried about, is student debt. Is that true? Yeah. All right. We got millions of people really being crushed with student debt. My idea is to merge the two. Okay? Now, you're asking me, how do I pay for it? I'll tell you how I pay for it.
I haven't asked that. I've asked you, how did it pass it through the Senate?
Wait a second.
How did you get 60 votes for any of this?
We are going to pay for it through a tax on Wall Street
Who's
speculation.
going to pass that tax?
The American people.
The Senate's going to pass that?
Chris, you and I look at the world differently. You look at it inside the Beltway. I'm not an inside the Beltway guy. I am an outside the Beltway guy.
But the people that vote on taxes are inside the Beltway.
And those people are going to vote the right way when millions of people demand that they vote the right way. On this issue, I have no doubt that as President of the United States, I can rally young people and their parents to say that if Germany does it, Scandinavia does it, countries around the world do it, we can do it. And yes, we bailed out Wall Street. It is Wall Street's time to help the middle class.
The next Senate leader, a Democratic leader, is probably Chuck Schumer of New York. Can you deliver his vote tonight? Can you tell me one senator is going to follow you for these proposals? They're all good, decent proposals. In fact, they're moral proposals.
Chuck,
tell me the votes.
Yeah,
Who's going to vote with you?
Very, very well.
Is he going to vote with you?
Well, call him up. I don't know.
Well, you give us one vote. You say I will give you 60 votes and pass it, and you can't give me one vote.
I didn't say
your vote, but you won't be in the Senate anymore.
Chris, I didn't say I couldn't give you one vote. Look, what you're not catching on, I have to say this respectfully. All right? You're a nice guy. You're missing the point. All right? You're missing the point. If you look at politics today as a zero-sum total, if you're looking at 63% of the American people not voting, 80% of young people not voting, billionaires buying elections, you're right. I'm not looking at that world.
How's that going to change the day you're in office? You won't have a Supreme Court on your side.
What I will have is millions of people demanding...
You need 60 votes to get a Supreme Court nominee. Well, no, we're starting at the very point of can you do what you say you're going to do?
Yes, damn right, I can do what I say.
What have you done like this? Have you ever done anything like this? Have you ever gotten 60 votes? Have you ever gotten 60 votes for anything in the Senate?
Yeah, actually, we have.
What was it?
My veterans bill, the comprehensive veterans bill, the strongest veterans bill passed in many, many years. But that's as a senator. Now I am, hopefully, the President of the United States. We have the bully pulpit. So the difference that you and I have.
So's Obama.
The difference that you and I have is you're looking at politics in the way it is today. What I am trying to do is not just pass legislation. I'm trying to change the face of American politics, getting working people to stand up and fight for their rights. And I think when we talk about issues like creating millions of jobs, rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, you tell me.
With all this, look, suppose you propose all this legislation and nothing happens. Do you just sit in office for 4 years?
I suspect not.
Well, what would you do? Suppose they say no.
First of all,
you assume everything's going to change. 1 million people are not going to stay outside your window for 4 years. They're not going to be out the window. They may come once.
Well, you are assuming, and this is the difference between our views, you are assuming, you know, that the American people are not going to be engaged in the political process. I think by definition.
No, I'm watching the turnout figures this year, and they're not going up.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Not on the Democratic side.
Look, first of all, let's jump into that. Barack Obama in 2008 ran, in my view, one of the great campaigns in the history of the United States of America. You and nobody else has ever heard me say that, you know, we're going to run a better campaign than he did. It was a brilliant campaign. But this is what I will tell you, Chris. When I started this campaign, I was at 3% in the polls. In the last 10 days, there have been 4 national polls that I've seen. 3 of them had me in the lead, 1, 2 points down. We have come a long, long way. In terms of voter turnout, no. The voter turnout was not what Obama did in 2008. And by the way, though, in that election, to talk about little politics, you had John Edwards, you had other candidates in there bringing in votes. The voter turnout actually in Iowa was strong, in New Hampshire very strong, in Nevada not strong, which is why we lost. So our job is, in fact, to make sure that these young people come out, working class people come out to vote.
Is everybody here going to vote? Yeah! Thank you. We'll be right back with some questions from the audience right here at the University of Chicago's Institute of Politics. The Hardball College Tour with Senator Bernie Sanders continues after this.